Good afternoon. My name is Lori Lowell, and I'm the Executive Director of Home Haven. And I'm very happy to bring you this program, which is sponsored by Home Haven, and we have opened it to members of the larger community. So welcome to all of you, Home Haven members and our guests and friends. We're very happy to have you with us. This program is Conversations about Assisted Living and Memory Care with David Hunter. And David is the CEO and president of the board of Mary Wade. At this point, I would suggest that you switch to speaker mode. I am going to read a very brief bio about David so you know who you're listening to, and then I'm just going to turn it over to him. Okay, so here we go. David Hunter is President and Chief Executive Officer of Mary Wade Home and Chatham Place at Mary Wade. He has been in this leadership role since 1981. He has directed the organization through numerous expansions and improvements, resulting in the following: 93 skilled nursing beds, a robust transportation program for medical appointments, an adult day center, a 55+ rental program in the Fairhaven neighborhood, and the newly constructed Chatham Place Assisted Living and Memory Care Campus. So all of that has been created and expanded during the time that David has been at the helm. He is a nursing home administrator licensed by the state of Connecticut Department of Public Health, and he has been the recipient of numerous awards for his years of service in the field. So he really is an expert, and he has a lot of experience in the areas that we'll be discussing today. David is involved in many community and health associations, and he currently serves on the board of directors of Leading Age Connecticut. He is past chair of the Institute for Long-Term Care Policy, the Agency on Aging of South Central Connecticut Interagency Council, and the Connecticut Coalition to Improve End-of-Life Care. David holds an undergraduate degree in business economics from Southern Connecticut State University and a master's of business administration, an MBA, from University of New Haven. So it is really a delight and a pleasure to welcome you, David. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
offering to do this presentation and share your knowledge with us. And I'm going to turn it over to you. Everyone else, please mute yourself for now so we don't have interruptions. And thank you very much.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you. And I just want to make sure that I think this is going to be a conversation, or this is what I'm hoping it to be. So please feel free to ask questions in the middle of the presentation, or if you have a comment, that you think is helpful for everyone, please feel free to do that. So really just thinking of it being a conversation. Before I start, I'd like to pull up an old slide that I like to use when talking to folks, and I'm going to see if I can do this. There? Okay, right?
Not yet. Yes.
You got it?
It's coming. There it is. Good.
Okay. What's this up here? Okay. So this is a spectrum of services.
David, can you scroll it up a bit? Because we're missing the very bottom. That was too much.
I'm going to start here, though.
Okay.
And I'm just want to make sure. I don't believe I have the entire screen, because so the pictures of the folks are behind part of the screen. So it starts with the spectrum of services, and I always think this is a very helpful picture of elder services. And so on the top, you're going to see the arrow want-driven, and to the right, need-driven. And then preventive, below that, preventive, and then long-term care, and then hospital, and then active adult communities and continuing care retirement communities and multi-level campuses. You know, what is not in here is your group, Home Havens group. So I would say that would be under active communities. And this slide is fairly old. It comes from CLA, which is a national accounting firm, and I can no longer find it on their website, but I like to use this for various reasons. So if you go to the left, you're going to see senior membership. So that might be, for example, a Home Haven and community-based services that you know, older folks could go to for services, walk-in clinics, for example. And then you have wellness programs. And I know that there's a gentleman in Brantford. I believe he's opened up another 2 or 3, but he specializes in gym activity for seniors. And I think that a lot of people are using his program. He's a physical therapist, and he provides physical exercise programs specifically for the geriatric population. And then you've got things like geriatric assessment, health and wellness, disease management. And then you move into the middle, and what is circled here is what Mary Wade offers. And I've done this for the board, and I can't get a cleaner copy, so I apologize for that. But it does give you an idea of what we have on our campus. And it's not only our campus. I'll be talking a little bit about other campuses that do this. They're primarily the nonprofit organizations have continuums of care. So this would be Elam Park in Cheshire, Masonic Care in Wallingford, the Lutheran Home in Shelton. So those would be some examples of continuing care. And generally what they have is, the independent living, 55 and older, independent living, assisted living, which we're going to be talking about. And along with that, dementia care, dementia assisted living down below here, respite care services, adult day center, both medical and social. Mary Wade has a medical model. So, and I'm not sure the adult day center up at the Sacred Heart campus in Hamden. I'm not positive if it's medical or social, but for your awareness, there are 2 different programs of adult day centers, if you're ever interested in that. Board and care, I want to be talking a little bit about board and care. It's in our state, it's called residential care homes. And residential care homes are very much similar to assisted living, except the state has a program that would assist the payment of the residential care home for people who are indigent, whereas assisted living is primarily for people who have financial means. And then, of course, we go into home care, and then palliative care, hospice care, skilled nursing, outpatient rehab therapy, subacute care, and then on to the hospital or long-term acute hospitalization. So that's the spectrum of services. Do you have any questions before I take that down? If I know how to do it.
If you have a question, please just unmute yourself and speak up. No, David, I don't think we have a question.
Okay, great.
Actually, I do have a question. David, this is Judy. Will you hi, thank you for this. Will you be speaking at all about the costs of these different places?
Oh, sure, I could. Yeah, you know what? Yes, I'll fit that in as best I can. Sure.
That would be great. Thank you.
All righty. Now I'm just trying to figure out how to take this screen off.
If you want to unshare, it should be at the very top of your screen. You should see a green bar.
Okay, here.
The very top of your screen, and I'm thinking that's where you
There
want
it is.
to share.
Okay, there we go.
I have a question. What's the difference between medical daycare and social daycare?
David, you haven't unshared quite yet.
Yeah.
Now you did. Great.
Okay. Question. An adult day center medical model has, there's 2 different requirements, but a medical model would have a full-time nurse on staff, for example, and be able to provide rehab services in the center. That would be one, those would be a couple of things. Whereas the social model would be very similar to maybe a senior citizen center. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So what I thought I'd do is give you an overview of Connecticut with respect to assisted living first. And then I think I'd go into some questions about that I think you would be asking. And then I do have a resource that would give us an idea of who's living in assisted living centers. And if that sounds okay to you, then I'll proceed. So in the state of Connecticut, the first assisted living community opened in 1998 in Hamden. And I recall those days before 1998 when the state of Connecticut received a plethora of applications, certificate of need applications, to build new residential care homes. Or at that time, it was called Home for the Aged. And they did that because it was the only way to develop an assisted living product. However, everyone realized that they would be subjected to a public health code, Connecticut Public Health Code, which included requirements for charging. And the people that were looking to do assisted living took a step back. They actually contacted Martha Kalina. I don't know if anybody ever remembered Martha Mang, who was with Martha Kalina, but she got together with this group of individuals. I happened to go to those meetings back in the day, and she wrote the assisted living regulations for the state of Connecticut. So it was the first time that occurred. So I'm guessing that was probably early mid 90s when that occurred. And then once those regulations were put into effect in the state of Connecticut, all of those individuals that thought they wanted to open a residential care home went and opened up assisted living units. So in 2020 now, we have 142 managed residential care units and 112 assisted living service agencies. So you'll see MRC in the field. MRC would stand for Managed Residential Care, and ALSA, ALSA, stands for Assisted Living Service Agencies. There are nearly 8,000 assisted living units in our state, or apartments, and some are spousal and shared units. The range in size in Connecticut is from 24 residents to 100 or more residents. The average cost in 2020, I'll get a little more specific, in 2020 for transitional assisted living was $6,300 or per month, or $7,500 annually. Memory care services cost 20 to 30% more than that. 60% of all managed residential care, or MRCs, and ALSAs, or assisted living service agencies in Connecticut, are part of a national or regional chain. So 60% are national or regional. 18% are regional only. 13% are state chains, and 9% are publicly funded. I believe there's three assisted living units. I know there's two, and I think there's three. There's one in Hartford called the Retreat. There's one in Cromwell, and I can't remember the name of it. And then there's one in Shelton. And these are assisted living units that are state funded for individuals who lack the resources to live in them. And I believe there are 2 or 3 different state agencies that fund these 3 assisted living units. Incidentally, 32 members, assisted living units, are members of Leading Age Connecticut. So there's 32 in the state of Connecticut that are nonprofit, single site locations. For example, Chatham Place at Mary Wade, Elam Park up in Cheshire, Lutheran Home of Southbury, Masonic Care at Pond Ridge, Wallingford. I think those are some of the closer ones. The Retreat in Hartford is that I mentioned to you. The Towers has assisted living there as well. The Towers in New Haven. So those are the nonprofit organizations that are not part of chains. Now, nearly all ELSAs, or assisted living service agencies, are under the same ownership as the MRC. So the MRC is the building. The managed residential care is the building itself. That is not licensed by the state of Connecticut, and it is not inspected by the state of Connecticut. The ELSA is the nursing part of it. It's like the home care agency specifically for that assisted living campus. That is licensed by the state of Connecticut under the Public Health Code and subject to annual unannounced inspections. So far, so good? Okay. So let's move on. That's kind of the general view of things. And, you know, we've seen since Chatham Place opened in February of 2021, I think it was 2021, right, Hal? 2021, yeah. I think there's been two others that have opened up, one in North Haven and one in Orange. So assisted living market is expanding in our state. So there are a lot of choices for folks. And so what are common reasons why people would come to an assisted living or managed care? Now, in most of the assisted livings have both assisted living and managed care. Managed care, in most cases, would be it would be a locked area. It would be a place that would be similar to, let's say, an upscale nursing home. The rooms are all private rooms. They look like nice apartments, but the residents primarily are in there due to, you know, various dementia illnesses, and so therefore would be dangerous for them to be free throughout the whole campus, and then you know, unfortunately get out of the building, which would be a disaster. But so there's the assisted living and the memory care. Many of the people come to us or come to the assisted living because they're no longer able to live independently, or they are living with a family member who has found it too challenging to take care of the individual. And, you know, things like, you know, daily living requirements, bathing, you know, going to the bathroom, taking medications, diet, you know, nutrition. Those are some of the areas that people who are struggling and would be seeking an assisted living center. And then in some cases, families who have been taking care of them can no longer do that. But, you know, to me, the biggest thing is the lack of socialization and stimulation that when people are living alone. I think that's one thing that Home Haven, I think, works at a lot through your programming, your committees like this, and activities that help people maintain friendships and be able to talk to others. You know, we see a lot of folks that are coming in, we're very lonely, and it's amazing to see them come in to the assisted living level and blossom when they realize that there's activities they can enjoy, that they make new friends, or in New Haven, they generally run into a friend they went to the elementary school or high school with, and we hear about all the stories that nobody ever wants to hear about once you've gotten older and out of that stage. But those are some of the fun things that go on, I think, when we see folks here. And so how do we determine the eligibility of somebody here? Well, we do a thorough assessment by a director of nursing. The assessment would include things like physical, emotional, behavioral needs. financial eligibility is also a consideration. And then, so what are the tools that we use to assess? All the assisted living units have a computerized program, and there are a variety of them. And the assessment would include things like the full physical, mini mental exam, a depression scale. In addition, home visits, many times home visits will take place in order to determine really, how people are managing on their own or not managing on their own at their own home. And that's usually a very helpful visit. The staffing is different in the assisted living versus the managed care, section. Assisted living, we do have full-time nurses on 24/7. Be careful about this aspect. There are assisted livings that say they have nursing on 24 hours, but they don't. So that's something I would say you really have to make sure that if you're going to choose a place because they do have 24-hour nursing, then make sure that you get a commitment on that. So in the AL, the assisted living is based on a couple of things. One, if you get a phone call and you go up and you help somebody out. The other is in that assessment process, it's a module that indicates a level of care a level of service that might be needed. And there are generally 3 levels of service that based on needs, then that level of service would be an additional service to that particular resident at an additional cost. So there's a base cost. I'll get into that in a second. There's a base cost for the room and board, and then there would be an additional monthly cost based on the needs of that individual. That could be, for example, help getting dressed, or giving out medications as needed, things like that. And those would be included in those 3 levels of care in the assisted living. So the staffing really is determined by the number of residents living in the assisted living and what those needs are of that population.
David, you said there were 3 levels. You said there was a base level and then there were.
So there's a base, so you're
additional
completely
services.
independent. You're completely independent and you don't need any care. There'd be a base rate. I think it's 40 in our place. It runs about 4,000 to 5,000 or $3,500 to $4,500 a base rate. Then there would be 3 levels of care beyond that. I don't have those figures for me, but it would be like $200 a month extra or $400 a month extra or $500.
So what are those 3 levels? What do they consist of?
Oh boy, you got me on that. Well, one would, as I said, one would be bathing. One would be, it would include things like bathing, help with medication, help with dressing. Another would be house, additional house cleaning beyond what the housekeepers will do. So
Yeah,
those levels of care.
I see. Okay.
One level includes escorting the resident to the dining room and back,
Okay.
things like that.
I see. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all.
Can I interrupt as well? My name is Judith.
I can see your name, Judith.
Hi, I'm wondering if why someone would come into assisted living and be independent. If that's the base rate and the base situation, how can that be? Wouldn't a person have to be somewhat dependent in assisted living? And I would have thought that was included in what assisted living means and therefore what was covered. So this is an interesting new sort of set of levels.
Well, believe it or not, there's a small percentage of people that actually think ahead on this stuff.
Mhm.
And so this would be an individual that's thinking ahead, that got a big house, that wants to come back to the city because there's public transportation, there's
Sure.
restaurants, there's theater. May be an 80-year-old or 75-year-old that's very healthy, with, very independent, but knows
Mhm.
that in a matter of time, things will be needed, and therefore they would choose to come to an assisted living community.
That's interesting. I thought that it was hard to get into assisted living and you really had to need assistance. But I guess that's not necessarily the case.
The majority of people I find wait too long. I think
Yeah.
we all
Mhm.
either we procrastinate or we have we have a different view of our status than it actually the reality is. And
Mhm.
I think most of
Okay.
us think we're 20 years younger than we are. I think that's one of the statistics I've seen. So
That's one of the things Home Haven helps correct in a way, helps deal with, but I won't take more of your time.
in many
Thank you.
ways, you're a community, but you're very independent with your own homes, but you rely on each other for transportation, activity, socialization. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
David,
We have a question.
David, I have one question. Which is there a buy-in, like at Whitney Center? You basically have a buy-in, you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for
Okay. So I
place.
mentioned that there's continuums. So Mary Wade would be a continuum. Elam Park would be a continuum. They also are a life care community. So a life care community is different than a continuum. This requires, as you just pointed out, $500,000 or $750,000 entrance fee, and then your monthly costs would be stable. So you would including going into a nursing home or going into an assisted living if they have one, but there would be a monthly fee that you would be able to plan for. So a life care community is very similar to, it's essentially an insurance product. So you have Doncaster up in
Hartford.
yeah, you have Elam Park has one also, Seabury and Whitney Center, as you pointed out, and then Humprog Woods. So those would be life care communities, which is different than an assisted living. A life care community could have an assisted living as part of its product, but assisted living standalone is not a life care community. That answer the question? Good.
Yes, thank you.
I'm glad you're asking me these things, because sometimes I forget.
There was a question from Diane Ariker.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I know that there are some places where people who want to stay in their home, but begin to need some of the help that you are describing, someone to come in and help bathe, or someone to come in and organize medications, etc. And I wanted to know how that movement has developed and what organizations in the state provided. I know that Whitney Center does. They have a program called Thrive at Home.
Yes. Yeah, and Seabury also has a product like that, and they're down here in the area as well. I don't know of others. I don't know if Masonic has done that or not. I'd be, because they purchased a home care agency, a large home care agency many years ago. So I don't know if they've come up with that. That's like another insurance product, right? Yeah, what you're saying.
So I'm
Yeah.
just wondering how, when that program developed, how it developed, how it's developing now, because obviously it's meeting a different need, a different segment of the community. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything you want to say about it.
No, other than it's like a long-term care insurance policy, right? So you pay a monthly fee, and then you're assured of getting services if and when you need it, and presuming that eventually you would need some of those services, and it would help you maintain your independence at home. So And I don't know what those rates are. I know the two entities that we've already talked about provide those services. I want to say it's been 15 years that began, that movement began, and it really came out of mainly life care communities, um, like a Whitney Center throughout the country, and they were trying to figure out a way to provide services other than through the community itself. So it'd be a separate agency, and then it would be similar to an insurance product where you would subscribe to it, and then as the need arose, then you would have to be available to it. I think a number of you all are on that program, either with Seabury or Whitney Center. I've been to a couple of your meetings pre-COVID, and I know there was a presentation made at one of those. I think it was a Seabury product, but I'm not positive. I don't remember exactly. Yeah. So I think you do have those presentations available to you.
Thank
Did I help you there with the answer?
Yeah, I was just curious about that
Yeah,
and how that's worked out.
it's so far it's working. Yeah, we've never got into that market at this point.
Well, in a sense, if I can interrupt again, this is Judith. It ties in with you because I'm a member of Seabury at Home and joined before there was the Thrive at Home program. And we're allowed to go into a facility, any facility that we choose in assisted living. So that's in a way why I was asking you more about the criteria for assisted living, so that somebody like me in Seabury might well want to go to your organization at that stage. Not yet, but possibly. So in a way, it does connect with what you're telling us.
Yeah,
and I think that's important.
You bring up a good point too. I receive many phone calls throughout the year from friends of mine who say, "Mom's in Florida. She needs more help. We're thinking of bringing her up to Connecticut, or Mom's in Texas." And the question I ask is, how long did they live there? Did they live there, or were they snowbirds? If they lived there, how long did they live there? And if they lived there for a long time, my advice usually is, if you move her to Connecticut, she'll, the staff and the residents talk about the old stores they went to, or the movies they went to, or the schools they went to. And if you're not from the area, that's going to be part of the confusion. Other than if you're in a place that is close to where you lived for a long time, and you talk about the same things, and to me it would help just with the orientation. And so that's so if Seabury is a lot different than Hamden. Up there in the hills. Yeah, so that'd be a big consideration. It's why people would choose Chatham Place than to go to Masonic up in Wallingford, farther away from the inner city. People who like the city, and I think. So let's talk about the difference between assisted living and memory care now. So there would be individuals that really couldn't maintain an active lifestyle living in an assisted living. Now, there are times families don't want their parent to go into the memory care, and then they'll bring in additional home care services to keep them as long as possible in the assisted living side. But at some point, folks really need the care. And so they would go into the memory care. The memory care is staffed with a lot of staff, a lot of nursing and nursing aides. There's actually in our assisted living, in our memory care, we have more staff there than we do in the skilled nursing center. And so it's high level care, complete care with daily ADLs, and they're fed in that area, and they have recreation in the area. In some cases, people do come out to into the larger community for various activities, and then go back into the memory care wing. Or some people still come out to our dining room and eat with the general population, and then go back. So it depends on the individual, and it depends on their desires as well. And so that would run in hours. It probably is going to run between $7,000 and $8,000 a month. I'm just saying, in the area, I think that's about where the costs are.
David,
Yes.
you've gone back and forth between the term managed care or memory care. Are they the same thing?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No. Memory care is the component of the assisted living model that is necessary for individuals that have higher level of care needs. Thank you for picking up on that.
Then what is managed care?
Managed care is an insurance product. So yeah, Medicare, managed care, or managed care. It's like a health insurance product.
Okay.
But that's different from managed residential care, MRC.
Yeah.
This is why we need you, David.
Yeah. So you're right. So the name, yeah, it is confusing. The name of the assisted living building is managed residential care.
Okay. Right.
Sorry for the confusion. I was hoping by doing this, I would make it less confusing, but I think I've made it more confusing. So managed residential care, MRC, is the building, the assisted living building. And that's what the state of Connecticut calls it. That's why we have to do it that way. And then the ALSA, the Assisted Living Service Agency, is the home care component inside the assisted living. And so the ALSA, the Assisted Living Service Agency, serves both populations, the memory care as well as the assisted living side. So it's a sizable staff to do all of this. We all clear now? Thanks, Hal, for bringing that up.
At one point, you mentioned a locked building. Which buildings are locked?
Managed care. Memory care.
Memory care.
Memory care. Okay.
David, you
Yep.
said that in the assisted living situation, there were levels of care. If you needed pharmaceutical help, if you needed activities of daily living help. It sounds like if you go into the memory care unit, there is one level of care.
It's all inclusive, yes.
It's all inclusive. So that's interesting, because I know that with the assisted living care, those extra levels of care can add up pretty quickly. And your monthly payment for the assisted living situation goes up. And I'm beginning to wonder if it might be more cost effective just to move into the memory care unit. But in the memory care unit, there is a feeling of you're locked down, and maybe you don't want your relative to be locked down, but they need assistance with activities of daily living. They need medication supervision. So is there another combination that can be made?
Right now, we're looking into a service that'll be between the two. For folks that aren't really ready for the memory care, but we're a little nervous that they wouldn't do well in the assisted living side. And so we're looking at a separate unit that would be in between. And then, of course, there'd be pricing, et cetera. But
Yeah.
Staffing would be dedicated probably to that area, and be a little more staffing going on.
Okay. So in your facility, somebody comes and says, I'm interested in being here. how do you assess the financial implications?
Well, we know what it would cost on an annual basis, and we look at, what folks have. Given, what we were in our planning of this campus, we were thinking, or the plan we had was individuals had, a fairly healthy Social Security or retirement plan, and then would sell their house and be able to afford to live in an assisted living. So the average individual lives 3.5 years in assisted living on average. That's about the length of stay, the average length of stay.
Okay.
And so, looking at all that, that's kind of how we planned it here.
3.5 years in assisted living, and then they graduate.
It's
to
on
memory
average,
care,
yeah.
or- Yeah.
And we've been open for 1.5 years, I guess now. And, we've already had folks leave the memory care and come into our skilled nursing center because their needs were much greater. Or they were in the assisted living, they became sick, went to the hospital, came back to our short-term rehab section, and then there's a determination made whether they could go back to the assisted living or stay in the nursing home. We've also had up 2 cases where people exhausted their funds, but we were able to accommodate them in the residential care home, which is assisted living that is paid for by the state of Connecticut. So, that's something to consider if someone were looking at an assisted living model, is what would happen if you ran out of funds? What would happen if you no longer could be cared for there? Where would you go and how would you do that? So if you're going to plan to go to one of those, you really should plan beyond that in the event that you need it. Even get an application into a skilled nursing center. You all should do it. It doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't guarantee, it doesn't commit you to anything, but it does get you on a waiting list. And in the state of Connecticut, skilled nursing centers have waiting lists that we have to comply with. And so but it doesn't cost anything for you to do that. And you don't have to ever go to a nursing home, but you would at least be in a position to choose the nursing home that you would want to be in if needed.
We'll be there
Great.
tomorrow.
So is memory care only for people with dementia?
No, there are other illnesses, there are other problems people have, inability to walk, for example, difficulty in getting dressed, depending on number of, let me see, if I could find it somewhere. Mobility was the biggest area where people, needed to get into either an assisted living or memory care, depending on the severity of it. But medical conditions, most common, which would be a reason why people would seek out assisted living, would be degenerative joint diseases, circulatory and heart problems, hypertension. Those are the most common, but also arthritis and rheumatism, high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, and other lung issues. So those are some of the common conditions that people have who are seeking out assisted living and or memory care, depending on the severity.
Oh, thank you. I mean, then that name is quite deceptive.
What one? Memory care?
care.
Yeah, it is. What do you think we should call it?
I don't know, but that's
talked
very
about it too.
confusing.
Yeah, we've talked about that too. But there are some people over there that, are very interesting to talk with, and they don't have a memory problem.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that.
Well, if anybody thinks of something, let us know. We ready to go on? I think I covered the general cost structures, but in general, the memory care is the all-inclusive rate, as I said, that includes 3 meals a day, weekly housekeeping, laundry, medication management, 24/7 nursing, and life enrichment activities. The AL has the basic room and board rate, and that would range from, I would say, $3,500 to $4,500. And it includes 3 meals daily, weekly housekeeping, laundry, 24/7 nursing, and life enrichment as well. Additional care and service levels, as we've been talking about, may be put into place depending on the resident's needs. And medication management services may be required at a cost based on the resident's ability to manage their meds. So the assisted living is more of an a la carte versus the memory care side. We good to go on?
Just one more interruption of the same sort. This isn't really your question, but it's our question, and certainly is mine. If I'm covered by Seabury or somebody's covered by Thrive to go into assisted living, I was once at a Seabury meeting where Sam Chauncey, whom you must know, said, well, you mean I no longer have any medical expenses to expect because I'm a member of Seabury? And that sounded really good. And I thought, yeah, I guess that's true of me too. But if you go into assisted living at Chatham Place, say, and there are levels of care, then I'm going to need to find out what's covered by my Seabury program. And I know you can't answer that question, but it seems like a really important question
Yeah,
for quite a number of us.
yeah, that is a good one. Yeah, I would think you wouldn't need it. I mean, it's not like you're living independently. You're living in a community that's providing services. And I would think that the levels of service in the assisted living side would be the same as what would be covered by the Seabury insurance product.
In
Right.
other words, you wouldn't just be at the base level, you'd
No.
probably be covered, but it's really important to find that out.
Yeah, that's a good question. When you're shopping, that's a good question to ask.
Well, it's 7 years too late for the shopping, but it's an urgent then question.
Yeah, I'll ask my staff and I'll get back to Lori and maybe she can
Great.
communicate that.
Thanks.
That's a good question.
David, I'm wondering how long-term care insurance fits into all this.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. That's question number 2.
Okay.
Do you know? Those of you that have long-term care insurance, does the product cover assisted living or just nursing homes?
I don't know.
Yes, Trish? You're on mute, Trish.
My husband was in a memory care center for the last year of his life, and our long-term care insurance did cover his expenses there. It would probably be wise to name the kind of the company that has your policy. I don't know if they're all the same, but I had Unum, and Unum did cover his expenses in the memory care.
Thank you. So applications. So there's one application that you would fill out in both. They're the same in the assisted living and the memory care. The applications detail tries to capture the following information: health history, social background, financial situation, family life, and things that we should know about you. And we also, assisted living entities will also have providers of care. So for example, dental, eye care, hearing, physical, occupational therapy, things of that nature would be indicated in the application as to whether or not you want to utilize our services or not. Most of the assisted all the assisted livings have some form of transportation available to members of the campus. So the agreement usually is the same for either the assisted living or the memory care side.
I see a question from Patty. Patty Langdon. She's unmuting. Patty, are you unmuting?
Okay.
Yep.
Is the assisted living facility, is that a room or an apartment?
We have studio rooms and we have 1-bedroom apartments. I think they, if you shop around, you'll see different programs and different size apartments. The main thing about assisted living is it's not meant for you to be in an apartment, in your apartment, and stay in your apartment. Assisted living is for people to be living actively in a community. So we really do promote socialization and activities and, making new friends. And so, that to me, that is a major difference between an assisted living model and a senior apartment model, that where you'd be more independent in an apartment, I believe.
Thanks.
Does that mean that you would mix with people who are not in assisted living, or that your community would be other people in assisted living? Or does that depend?
Yeah, we have 64 units. Some are studio and some are 1-bedroom apartments. You're in that, it's three stories, so the folks live in there. There's programming that's available. They dine together. They visit with each other, and they go on trips together. But the memory care is separate. It's 20 rooms. The rooms are the same size as the assisted living, except there's no refrigerator, or there's no microwave or sink cabinetry there in their rooms.
Mhm. Thanks.
Katie.
It's Diane again. I don't know that this answers Judith's question, but it somewhat addresses it. So I have Thrive at Home, and you can be a member of Thrive at Home at 2 or 3 different levels. And that level determines your monthly payment. But also, together with your monthly payment, you have a monthly allowance of services. So that if you needed services at home at the various levels that you're describing, medication, bathing, whatever, that monthly payment that I make gives me the benefit of those services at home. Now, that's not answering Judith's question about what would happen if you're in the facility, but I can't imagine it would be that different. But anyway, that is the way the Thrive at Home service works in terms of having services.
Mhm.
Okay. I have some tips from my staff for you as far as assisted living is concerned. The main thing is don't wait for a crisis. Be proactive in planning and evaluating your options sooner than later. Many times families and residents wait way too long, and they're not able to truly benefit from the social and wellness value of living in an assisted living campus. They should also look for happy employees and happy residents, and look for residents who are engaged in activities and that activities are diverse and fit the population. And look at the dining experience and the quality of meals served. The cleanliness of the residents, and the cleanliness of their surroundings. Some tips for you. I think if we were asked if you wanted to have a meal in our dining room, I believe we would accommodate you on that. I did want to talk a little bit about residential care homes, just briefly, because they're very similar, except in a residential care home, as I said to you, the state of Connecticut has a fund program to pay for folks who don't have the financial means, but it's all inclusive in the residential care home. The medications are administered by a nurse. There's 3 meals a day. There's activities available, housekeeping and laundry is all inclusive. So whether you need assistance with medications or not, chances are you're going to get your medications given to you in a residential care home. But it's very similar. So for so long, it was kept sort of separate, but it's very, very similar. And the state of Connecticut right now is interested in expanding residential care units to serve the population at this point. So it's something to keep in mind, I think. And then I just thought I'd give you some demographics of who lives in assisted living, and then we can end it there because it looks like we're getting close to our time. But there's a number of studies that have been done over the years, and they report that one study reports that 64% of all residents were over the age of 75, and 1/3 of those were over 85.
David, can you give us that again? When you turn your head, we missed a bit of it.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah. They report that 64% of all residents were over the age of 75, and 1/3 of them were over 85. And guess what? The residents in residential care and assisted living campuses are predominantly women. And looking at this screen, yep, we're predominantly women here because you have a longer life expectancy than we do currently. The African American population is underrepresented. 91% of residents in a 10-state study were white. The majority of residents in these facilities serving the elderly are widowed. Some individuals have chronic mental health issues. Education-wise, a high percentage of the aged population in these campuses have a high school education or less. 35% of residents came to their current housing or care environment from some other supportive housing or healthcare setting, including hospitals, nursing homes, or other similar facilities. That's kind of an interesting demographic. The remaining majority of the residents moved into their current assisted living setting from housing, including their own homes or an apartment. I said the length of stay on average is 3.5 years. And I think mobility, the issue of mobility or the use of mobility devices, higher percentage of people living in these campuses are in that category. And, it runs the gambit of, bed mobility, ability to transfer, dressing, eating, toileting, personal hygiene, bathing. I think bathing was one of the bigger challenges that people faced, and were one of the main reasons for them to in addition to the other activities of daily living. I already told you about the diseases. And, you know, many of the folks that enter into assisted living have already had, you know, experiences in hospitals, emergency rooms, rehabilitation facilities, or nursing homes. Majority of people living in assisted living have already had some experience with that in the course of the past year or two. That's some of the demographics that I thought were kind of interest.
Mm.
I think that's all I have for you.
So David, can you hear me? It's
Yes.
Pat. Yeah. All right. A lot of information. I'm hearing you that we should get started early. But what should we do? Should we go to visit multiple facilities? Should we need to think about this continuum of care versus assisted living? You know, it's still very confusing.
Mhm.
How would you recommend as individuals we approach this? We
So-
are all, you know, pretty healthy. We're living in our home, but you're telling us that we should have a plan. We should at least know what's out there and begin to put in applications or
Yeah.
whatever. So
I always recommend knowing what nursing home you'd want to be in if you had to be in one, whether it was short term or long term, and get an application. It costs $0, and you'll get a call once a year or so to see if you still want to be on the list, and that's it. But there are professionals, health professionals that you can hire to come in and evaluate your situation,
Mhm.
and then help you come up with a plan of action. Many of you probably know Bernadette DeJulian. She's one of those that are in the area that'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But without hiring somebody, how do you find out what the good nursing home, if there is such a thing as a good nursing home, where it is or what it is?
Well, it does take, you know, some footwork, you know, to go in and smell and see and,
Mhm.
you know, get a
How do you
sense.
get the names?
Get a sense. How do you get the names of what? The
Mhm.
nursing homes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're all on computers, right? Google skilled nursing homes near me.
Mhm.
That'd be one. That'd be
Mhm.
one area that you could do. You could all call me individually. I'll be honest with you. I get a lot of calls from people for help, and you know, I could, you know, I'm a good resource if you need be.
We do have a list of the kind of helper that you're talking about. They're called geriatric care managers. Actually, they have a new name because they didn't like that name, but there's actually a national association that most of them belong to, where there are, you know, levels of competency that they're held to in order to belong to those agencies. Excuse me, I mean to that association of managers. We have a list. It's a short list. I wish I could say, you know, we've got half a dozen people, but Bernadette DeJulian is on that list. There's also Patty Urban. There is Marcy Dimmenstein.
Is Marsha Bella still on it?
No, Marsha Beller has retired.
Okay.
Laura Kaplan is pretty much not available. She's doing psychotherapy for the aging population. She's a very good therapist. I don't know how much planning she's doing these days. COVID sort of shut down that part of her practice. There are also a couple of other names that I have. We have Home Haven members who've gotten referrals from Yale, and so I've added those names to my list. Everyone, except for these new names that I've just gotten, I have vetted the people that I mentioned, and I can tell you that they are competent. But it's a very personal process, hiring someone like that. You're working very closely. You are sharing very intimate details of your life, including your financials, your family dynamics, if you have adult children or other family who want to be involved in the decision, or whom you want to be involved in the decision. That can be sensitive information. So, what I always suggest to people who approach the office is I will give people 3 or 4 names and say, get on the phone with them for 20 minutes. They'll all give you 20 minutes for sure. And get a feel. If it's somebody that you get a good feeling for, then ask to meet them and interview 2 or 3 people. You're hiring them. So you have the right to ask them all the tough questions about the way that they work. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think that we are all not experts in finding the information that David has been talking about. And these care managers are expert at this. They are mostly social workers. Bernadette is a chaplain, trained as a chaplain. There are some others who are counselors of various sorts, but they're all different. This is not an area in social work school, where you can major in geriatric care management. It should be. It really should be.
Might someday be.
But unfortunately, it's not. I understand that, for instance, Southern, which has a good social work school, I think they have 1 course in this area. And considering the demographics of our age group, there should be more. There definitely should be more. You also can learn from each other. And maybe what this is, I mean, I think we've had a really good turnout for this program. We had 40 screens. If you take away staff and David, that's 37 screens and at least 50 or more people. So maybe what this tells me is that we need to do some follow-up work.
Yes.
I do think a lot of you have information you can share with each other, but you don't have a way to do that. So maybe one of the things we could do is have a follow-up session without an expert where we just speak among ourselves and get a feeling for what we want. In other words, what you Home Haveners want from the organization in this area. Do you want workshops? Do you want more experts? Do you want us to publish lists of things that we can email to you? I'm always available for a private consultation, or happy to meet with a group. I'm also happy to meet with groups in the villages. So I'd be thrilled to go to downtown and meet with downtown members, and go up to Amity and meet with people there. We have a lot of options. So, and I'm saying all this, I'm taking a couple of minutes for this because I think, David, I'm sorry to say this to you, but this program was not uplifting per se. I've been watching your faces. You all have a lot on your minds when you think about this. So on the upside, let's say that we have a community, we can help each other, we can figure some things out together. And I think we need to do that. And please, email me or email your village leaders if you want more conversation. Just let us know. I see a question from Anne, who, Anne, you're a guest and welcome to Home Haven. So welcome.
Well, what is leaving me in a down place is I live in Wallingford and I'm not eligible for Home Haven. So
right.
I'm wondering where in the world can I get, you're offering additional follow-up. I don't have that option. So
you
help.
don't. Well, one thing I would say is you might approach your senior center in Wallingford and see what resources they have. You might call around to the area churches and see if they have a senior group. There are churches where older adults are getting together and talking about these very issues.
Well, I belong to Spring Glen and we have a very active
you have a wonderful
senior group.
And I would say anything that I send to Chuck Paul, Chuck, I'm giving you permission, just send it to Anne, we will share, we can share our list of care managers with you. I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
But, yeah.
Lori, to add to what you're saying, Martha Peterson has just posted something in the chat to say that Medicare has a list of nursing homes that are more or less vetted, and that would be a way of not having to pay a geriatric care manager or whatever they're called, but to get some information directly from the Medicare website. Thank you,
Mhm.
Martha.
Thank you, Martha.
The
But
Agency on Aging, South Central Connecticut is also
Yeah.
another resource.
That's good. Mhm.
Lori, David, it's Diane again. I'm sorry to take us off subject, but I really have been waiting. I did not want David to leave without my thanking him and Mary Wade for being wonderful members of the greater community. I don't know how many of you know this, but Mary Wade and Music Haven partner.
Mm.
Music Haven, as some of you know, is an organization that provides instruments and music lessons to inner city young people. And there's a partnership that has developed between Music Haven and Mary Wade, which is really quite beautiful. The musicians make music at Mary Wade, and Mary Wade provides transportation for some of the students to get to their lessons. So that's really quite an extraordinary thing.
Ah,
And
thank you for, well, they get bused, the kids get bused to Music Haven, but they don't have transportation home. And
Yeah.
their parents, a lot of the parents are working or don't have transportation. So we pick them up at Home Haven. I mean, not Home Haven, Music Haven, and bring them home at night.
that's wonderful. That's
That's-
wonderful.
That's
Thank you.
great.
Thank you, Diane, for that. I think we're going to wrap it up. On behalf of all of us, and especially our Health and Wellness Committee, I want to thank, I'm going to thank Pat Allen for organizing this program. Thank you, Pat, and your Health and Wellness Committee for everything you do and for putting this together. Thank you, David, for your time, your expertise, your generosity, your warmth. I've been to your facility many, many times, and it is a beautiful place. It is warm, caring, there's parties. In fact, Home Haven members have been invited to many of their parties. I always forward anything to you, membership that comes from Mary Wade's, and we will continue to do that. They have open houses where you can come and walk around and get a feel for it. So thank you all for being here. Anything else? Let's talk offline, off the program. You can reach me in the office and we will continue the conversation.
Good.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
David.
you.
Thank you
You're
again.
welcome.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
Yeah,
You.
thank you. Be well, everybody. Stay warm, stay safe.
Yeah.
No skidding, guys. No
Yeah.
skidding when you drive. No